Writing Now strategy session. You can reach me by email at Leslie, Lesli, at foundationscoachingnc.com. That's FOUNDATIONS, coaching, N as in Nancy, C as in Charlie.com, or you can reach me by phone at area code 919-924-0463. Again, that's 919-924-0463. And now I want to get back to Kelly and talking about some other types of anger that exist. And two of the other types that you mentioned are frustrated anger and scared anger, which to me are similar, but they are different. So can you define each one?
Yes, absolutely. So frustrated, so it's funny, like I was actually presenting on defensive anger at that conference that I mentioned, and and one of the participants at the conference, during a Q&A session asked me, like, so this defensive anger, you said it really gets rolling around middle school, but like my 3-year-old's angry all the time. Like, does my 3-year-old have are they precocious when it comes to having a false self and this defensive anger? And I said no, but I didn't give a very good answer. And that's when my wife came in and said, he's right. Like, kids experience anger all the time, but it's more of a frustrated anger. So what frustrated anger is I've got a goal, and there's some sort of barrier in the way of me getting to it, and that's frustrating to me. Kids are experiencing this all the time, right?
Right.
The classic example that we all know, and is you're walking through the supermarket checkout line, and there's a big row of candy bars, and a kid wants it, and a parent says no, and the kid gets angry.
Right.
Well, they're frustrated. They have that's their goal, is to get that Milky Way, and their parent is in the way of doing that. And at that age, for kids, most of the world is in the way of getting what they want. They don't have a lot of control. And so there's a lot of frustrated anger in childhood, but we also carry that forward into adulthood. I'm working on a blog post and I'm almost finished, and I'm working in Microsoft Word and I've forgotten to save for a while, and I'm almost to the end of it and Word crashes. Right?
Yep.
I have to start all over. This is frustrated anger, right? I was so close to my goal, and then this thing happened and got in the way. So yeah, that's more what I mean by frustrated anger. And the importance, I think, of identifying these 4 types isn't just an understanding, but knowing how to respond. So, for instance, if a kid, or maybe the little kid inside of you, is frustrated about something, it means there's a goal that is being frustrated and they're not reaching. So the question is, hey, what are you wanting that you can't get right now? And is there a way that we could problem solve and help you get it in a productive way? And if not, what can we do to sort of accept, like right now, that we just can't have everything?
But you're not going to get that candy bar.
Right. Like you're not going to get it. Or, like let's negotiate. We'll buy it, and if you eat all your fruits and vegetables at dinner tonight, you can have half of it for a snack, And so that's the problem-solving piece. And sometimes the answer is no, and frustration tolerance is a good thing to learn, and you can help them with that. And then as adults, we obviously need to be able to identify
learn that
as well.
too.
Yep. So that's frustrated anger. Scared anger is more, it's this idea that we have a nervous system that is wired to arouse us if there's a threat to us in the immediate environment. And this is you also spoke to this earlier, right? The kid is about to cross the street and go into traffic or touch a hot stove. These real primal threats to us. And our nervous system is wired to arouse us in that moment to do one of 2 things. And those 2 things are to get scared and to run away from the threat, or to get angry. That's what the arousal is used for, to then get angry and sort of fight the threat. And so when this sort of anger is present, you can almost always notice that it's one side of a coin, and right away on the other side, you'll discover that there's fear. I remember, our oldest was probably 3, and we were at a big outdoor festival, and one moment he was right next to me, and the next moment he was gone, right?
Oh, my God,
and and it lasted about 3 minutes until we found him, and the fear. But sure enough, I find him, and we're safe now.
Right.
And I've hugged him, and I looked at him, and he's sort of smiling at me, and then I'm like, don't ever walk away from us, like that again. And there's my scared anger, right? The flip side of that arousal is to sort of engage and fight the threat. And so the frustrated anger is prevention of a goal. The scared anger is just the flip side of a fear, a threat to our sense of well-being. Yeah.
Yeah, and just as you're noting these differences, I've shared some examples. You shared some examples. I think we all can come up with examples of, oh, I was scared, or oh, I was frustrated, or oh, I felt attacked. I mean, and again, this is information about us, what matters to us, what's and then of course the biggest thing is what do we do with it?
Right.
And again, it's like anything else. Knowledge is power. When we understand what's driving something, that's when we are given the opportunity to do something different with it.
Yep.
And that kind of brings me to this last type of anger that you mentioned, that you call righteous anger. And, what do you mean by righteous anger?
I'm stuck between saying one more thing about let me say one more thing about scared anger, and then we'll jump into that. Scared anger. I think it can be really helpful in relationships when someone that we love is acting angry, to remember that say you're faced with a tiger out in the front yard or something. You can do two things. You can get scared and run, or you can get angry and fight it, right? That if your partner, if your friend, if your companion appears to be getting angry and fighting, it's because they don't want to leave, right? They don't want to act scared and disengage and leave. So you can actually see in their anger a little bit of commitment to you, that they're not sure what to do with this arousal. They don't want to leave, but they don't feel safe staying either, and so they're having to act out in a more aggressive way. So I think you can begin to look for the fear underneath the anger, and you can do so kind of being grateful for their interest in staying and not just sort of exiting. So I did want to say that in terms of application.
Absolutely.
But righteous anger. So the idea here with righteous anger, remember I mentioned this idea that we all come into the world with a true self, and then we get shamed and we build a false self. Righteous anger is what happens at the moment of that shame for most young children. It's the moment where a kid who doesn't question their worthiness at all of a sudden gets shamed and mistreated and gets angry, like I deserve to be treated better than that. Like I don't deserve that. This isn't fair. This isn't right. And that righteous anger actually connects us with our true self in a way. So one of the things I often find myself doing with clients is helping them connect with their righteous anger, because if we can, we're really close to reconnecting with their true self, the part of them that goes, I deserve to be treated better than this. And I get asked a lot, well, how do you know if it's righteous anger coming from your true self or defensive anger coming from your false self? And the answer to that is that righteous anger always sees the worthiness and the value in everyone else too. Defensive anger tends to separate us and say, hey, I'm defend because I'm better than you, or I deserve safety more than you. But righteous anger, there's a justice orientation to it that says, hey, I deserve to be treated better than this, and hey, you deserve to be treated well too. Like, we all deserve to be treated well. What are we doing here?
I love that distinction.
There's an expansiveness to it. This isn't just about me sticking up for myself. This is me sticking up for everybody who's not being treated well. And so there's a righteous, not a self-righteousness to it, but a true, authentic, good righteousness to it.
Yeah, as you're talking, it reminds me of the late Representative John Lewis's Good Trouble. That he, his mom would tell him not to get into trouble. And he goes, no, Mom, just good trouble.
That's
we'll get into trouble. Which is that righteous anger on behalf, not of other people. It's what we all feel when we see something not okay happening around us. It's that it's that righteous anger that comes into play. But I love the idea, because we think about we think about things, not being fair for ourselves, and it does. It triggers that little kid of, I don't have any power. I don't, this isn't fair. Why is this happening?
Right.
But that's, again, just information to take a bigger look at what's going on. And I like the idea of righteous anger is nobody should be treated this way versus defensive anger of I shouldn't be treated this way.
That's right. Yeah, the natural action that flows from defensive anger is to go on the attack, but the natural action that flows from righteous anger is to defend oneself and everybody else. And so it can be pretty quickly and easily distinguished within us. You'll notice if you're looking at that sort of reaction within you, you'll notice the instinct. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's what we're needing more right now of leaders in the public square is leaders with that righteous anger that are going to start some good trouble rather than just senseless trouble. So do you have any suggestions about how people can become more curious about their, not only definitely about their own anger, but also about other people's anger? What would be helpful? Because as opposed to getting caught up, in the heat of the moment, how do we call upon our higher selves? What are some things people could do? Well, creating that moment of pause and reaction is the most important, and I don't think, just that moment of pause to make a choice, to choose to be curious about another person's anger, to ask the question of them about their anger, to spend some time contemplating and reflecting on our own anger. But you have to be able to create that moment of choice, and I don't think it's possible to just one day turn that on. I don't think it's possible to just say, okay, I'm going to start creating a moment of choice when I get angry. I think it requires a lot of practice, and one of the tools that we as therapists use a lot these days in doing so is a regular practice of mindfulness or meditation. I could almost guarantee you somebody that is genuinely practicing mindfulness or meditation, say 10 to 20 minutes a day, is going to begin to naturally be able to create that moment of choice when the anger arises in themselves or somebody else. And so to me, it's sort of like the moment of anger is game time, and the mindfulness practice is the practice in preparation for that moment, so that your reactions are natural at that point. To slow down and to ask questions and be curious rather than forced. So that'd be my encouragement to folks, is to be considering those sorts of practices to cultivate this ability to pause.
Yeah, I think that's, and it can be very difficult, like you said, to try to do it in the moment because our bodies are really wired. And I loved you bringing up that the way that our body is naturally built for arousal, because that's a survival mechanism. And when I talk with my clients, I tell them, I said, once that cascade starts in your body has no idea what the cause of it is, so they don't really know whether the threat is actually real. There's a tiger on your front lawn, or if the threat is more from shame or something that's but our body is going to react the way it reacts, and it's very difficult in that moment to pull back.
You're actually, we are here. We've survived because we're designed to react quickly in that moment without thought, right? That's what the arousal is actually about. It's sending blood to the areas of your body that it's going to need to react quickly. It's shutting down other areas, like digestion shuts down because you don't need that when you're reacting quickly to a threat. And so everything about your natural being is compelling you to just respond quickly without thought, and so you're sort of exiting the natural part of you, and you're entering into the more conscious part of you, and practicing slowing that process down. And so it does require practice. Yeah, so like you said, it's just not going to happen naturally.
And I liken it to like the military or the police and fire, that they actually have to be trained to run into danger when all the rest of us are running the heck away. It's like, yeah, I'm not going into that burning building. Are you crazy?
That's a great metaphor. Yes.
And they are trained. They train all the time for this, and we think that we're just going to be able to do this. And so I love the idea that one,